Hello friends, my name is Iris Josephina. I'm your host and you are listening to the Planting Seeds podcast. On the Planting Seeds podcast, we explore how we can cultivate a more gentle relationship with our cyclical bodies, the earth, each other, and the world around us through using our senses, science, the subtle, and the sacred. On Planting Seeds, we talk about all those topics you've always wanted to talk about. We are shamelessly opening up the conversations that we all so desperately need to settle in our precious bodies and relate to each other in a more open, truthful, and empowered way. I'm so glad you're here today. Hello everyone, welcome to this new episode of the Planting Seeds podcast. Today I would love to talk to you about sovereignty and agency during gynecological visits. So I was invited over at Op Zoek podcast, which is a Dutch podcast platform, and there I talked about how I go about gynecological exams, how my behavior is, how I interact with my care providers. But this podcast was in Dutch, and I noticed that a lot of people started contacting me and they said, oh my goodness, you should record this podcast in English as well because everybody needs to know this. So I decided to create an episode for my own podcast on this topic. So I want to start off by saying that gynecological exams and visits are usually not the funnest ones, but I can reassure you that when you take the sovereignty and agency over your body, they can become more bearable and pleasant for you. And I want to talk about the experiences that I have heard people have and that I have had in the past. And most of them were unpleasant, mainly when it involved vaginal exams or ultrasounds. And the reason these exams for me personally were so unpleasant is because there was no form of consent that was, that people asked me to touch me. People were more like, I am going to do this and I am going to do that, without really checking in with me whether I was actually comfortable with that. So that was one, and that would leave my body in some sort of traumatic state because things would happen too fast. I wouldn't know what would happen. My body wasn't ready. And what I learned from that is how to read and feel my own body. And I discovered that there is two ways that a body can respond to gynecological procedures, and that is either expand and open, or contract and close. And it's very important to know the difference between these two states of the body. When a body is open and receptive, it is less likely to get a shock or feel invaded than when the body is completely contracting and actually saying, no, I'm not ready yet. So I know this from personal experience. It's a terrible feeling. I have had hundreds of clients who had similar experiences, and this doesn't only apply to just gynecological visits. It actually also applies to midwives performing vaginal exams during birth and birth in a hospital setting with a gynecologist in the room. And what I have seen with my own eyes and heard from clients is that a lot of the times they don't feel ready, or they don't feel that they are in control for what is about to happen. And I want to share with you that I hear you, and also that it is not your fault that you have felt that way. I know clients who felt really bad, or who felt sorry, or who felt ashamed after vaginal exams or gynecological appointments. And I do want to share with you today how you can have a very big influence on how this appointment is going to unfold for you. So I'm going to give you the example of my last pap smear, which happened in August 2020. I was in my hometown and I needed a pap smear. So I contacted my local doctor, who has been my doctor ever since I was born, and I made my appointment. I went to my appointment, but before I went in, I wrote some things down that I found important to mention. And as I walked in and sat down on the chair, I had a little chat with her. We hadn't seen each other for a long time. And then I told her, look, I usually don't find these experiences very pleasant. So would it be okay if I would just give all the cues? Because I feel very invaded. I don't feel safe. It is painful for me. And what I actually did was just share my own personal experience from my own feelings and how it has felt in the past. On top of that, I told her that I would love for her to make a picture of my cervix because it had been a very long time that I had seen my own cervix. And at first she was like, okay. And I said, yeah, it's like I find it important to connect with that part of my body because it's the most intimate part of my body and I would love to see what it looks like. And then she kind of like eased in and she said, yeah, that's actually really cool and really logical that you would want that. So she invited me to lay down on the examination table and I took my clothes off. I just laid down. I kept my legs closed. And I said, I need some time. And I just started breathing. I closed my eyes. And then I opened my eyes. And then I said that I wanted to put in the speculum myself and that I would give her a cue when it would be okay and she could open the speculum. And she just totally agreed with that. She didn't ask me any questions. So she gave me the speculum. She even warmed it up a little bit under the tap. And so I took some deep breaths and I really took my time and I voiced to her like, oh, I really don't like this, but I'm feeling more at ease because I can do this myself. And I was just voicing how the process went, how my body felt. And I put in a speculum, I turned it, and then when I felt it was in my vagina and it was okay, I told her like, okay, now you can open it. And then she did. And then I said, I want to wait a little bit longer before you perform the pap smear and I will tell you when I'm ready. So then again, I took a few breaths. I connected with my womb. I connected with my cervix. Internally, I was telling my cervix what was about to happen. I usually have those kinds of communication and conversations with my body to just feel my body ease in when I'm in an unpleasant situation like that. So again, I really took my time. I checked in with my body. And then when I felt it was okay, I said, okay, I'm ready and you can do the pap smear. And so she did. And when she was taking the pap smear, I voiced to her like, oof, this is really uncomfortable. And then she checked in with me and she said, are you okay? And I was okay. And it was okay for me, for her to continue. And then when she was ready, I gave her my phone and she took pictures of my cervix, which for me was a very empowering experience. And I was like giving her cues, like I want to have the full frontal picture of my cervix. I want it to be very clear. And then she finished making the photos. And then again, I told her like, okay, now I'm ready for the speculum to go out. And I took a few moments. I took a few breaths. She checked in with me again to see like whether I was okay. And I was. And then afterwards, because people have touched the most inner part of your body, you feel something. I always feel something. So after this experience, I actually felt really empowered and my body did not feel invaded because I was the one giving the cues when something would happen. So I had full control and I could take full agency over my body when the exam would happen, when the speculum would go in, the whole thing was in my control and I was giving the cues. And what I think is very important to mention in this whole story is that I did not point fingers towards my caregiver, right? I was just speaking from my own experience, from my own human feeling during an exam like that. So I wasn't pointing fingers, I wasn't blaming anyone, but I was just, talking from a very human bodily perspective. And in my experience, people get that. Care providers get that. And it's not about taking the authority or being the authority, but it really is about the integrity towards yourself that you can remain and sustain during an exam like that or during an appointment like that. And that is what makes it empowering, because you stay close to your own experience, you stay close to your own feelings. That is when it starts to feel empowering. It's not about deciding who is the authority or approaching this with force or having the feeling you need to defend yourself. No, it's really about remaining in that integrity towards yourself. And because you are in that softness, in that gentleness with yourself, that you kind of like radiate that onto your care provider. When you are like super respectful and delicate and gentle and soft with your own body, and you approach your body like that, other people feel that, they notice that. So this is what I recommend to all of my clients. Whenever they are going to see a doctor or a gynecologist or their midwife, stay in that integrity towards yourself. Treat your own body the way that you want other people to treat it. And what helps for me is that I take deep breaths, I put my hands on my body so that my care provider can really sense that I care. I care deeply about my body. And for me, it's like my sacred vessel. And I want other people to treat my body in that way. So by showing them the example, by being the example of how I want my body to be treated, it's easier for people and care providers to understand how I want it. And that has been such a game changer for my own bodily integrity, for my own feeling of empowerment, for my own feeling of full control. I love to be in control when it comes to my body because it's such an important aspect of my life. It's the vessel from which I do everything. So I really feel it's my duty that I take charge and that I take care of my body and that I really am mindful about how I approach my body and how I teach other people how they can relate to my body and also what my standard is. So in the past, I did not love my body. I did not make my body a priority. And all of my experiences, especially in settings like these, would feel disempowering because I would not take the responsibility to show the example, to show people how I treat my body and how beautiful I find my body and how connected I want to be to my body. And this has been the biggest game changer of my life because I know a lot of people who are actually traumatized by experience like that. And it takes a long time to recover from that. Even if it's just like a gynecological exam that takes like 10 minutes, a body can actually get traumatized from that. And what do I mean when I say trauma? Dr. Peter Levine says basically everything that happens too fast, too quick, too soon when it comes to the body can cause a trauma reaction in the body. And for me personally in the past, that was definitely the case in gynecological settings. And by changing that narrative for myself and literally taking it slow and taking my time and also not really caring so much about the fact that my doctor would only have 10 minutes, I would just take my time. I'm paying my insurance money to have a moment with my doctor. So I'm going to take that moment. I deserve that moment because I pay for it. I deserve good care. So I'm going to make sure I'm going to get it from a very empowering, gentle and soft source. I'm never forceful. I used to be forceful in these kinds of situations, but it wouldn't bring me what I would want. And what I want is to be respected. What I want is that my body is respected. What I want is that my body has enough time to prepare for an exam like that. What I want is that I respect my body so deeply that I show it as an example to my care provider so that they can also get inspired in how they go about bodies and that they can see what the possibility is. So I think this was the most important thing that I wanted to share today. And I'm also curious about your experiences. And I know that there are so many experiences that are disempowering, that are painful. And I want you to know that I see you and I hear you and that your experience is valid, but that you can take the power back. You can take agency over your body. You can take the full sovereignty over your cyclical body and shift your narrative. So I would love to encourage you to take all of this information into your next appointment in your doctor's office, in your gynecologist's office, in your midwife's office, and just apply it. You don't even have to tell them that you're, going to approach this in an empowering way. Just implement it into your own life and make it the norm for your body to respect it and to show that example when it comes to your care provider, and show them that you care about your body. Show them that you appreciate your body. Show them that you know the pace of your body. Show them that you know what your body needs. So I hope this was helpful. I'm really curious how this episode has been for you, how it has made you think, how it has made you feel. So feel free to hop on over to my Instagram page, send me a DM there. My Instagram handle is @CycleSeeds. That is CYCLESEEDS. You can also go to my website at www.cycleseeds.com and pop me a message there. I'm very curious how this was for you. I'm very curious to hear your stories. And don't forget to rate the podcast if you like it. And I cannot wait to talk to you again. Have a beautiful day.